Welcome to the Aligned Powerhouse, the podcast for executive women who are done leading from burnout and ready to rise from alignment. I'm your host, Dr. Brittany McGeehan, licensed psychologist, high performance and mindset coach, and guide for high achieving women who are ready to lead, live, and love without abandoning themselves. Here, we unpack the nervous system truths, mindset shifts, and emotional patterns that drive your leadership so you can build power from the inside out. Let's get into it. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back. Good morning for me. Okay. If you guys know me in real life, you know I'm in a season of life where we got the littles, we got the babies, and they are a big part of my priorities. So this is being recorded before they wake up because we're in it and we're figuring it out. I'm really excited for today because today we are going to get into the nitty gritty of identity formation. And I give you information about like what time of day it is because my coffee is just now kicking in, guys. We are here showing up messy and getting it done. But also if I sound like I've been smoking a pack a day, there's a reason for that. And like, just give me a hot moment. Okay. But I'm really excited because I wanted to record this episode. You know, I am trying to get more input from my audience, my listeners on what you're craving, what you're looking for. And there's a split in my audience, right? There is women who have not reached their quote unquote version of success just yet. They're still in the process of building, amping up, whatever it is. And then there's this other end of women who honestly, like on paper and all of it, like they have made it, but they don't feel, they have not yet felt secure in that success. Okay. So this episode really honestly is for both audiences, but I really want to focus on something that I think we don't talk tons about in the mental health industry / we don't break down the nitty gritty. And if there's one thing I know about you, if you're listening to this episode, is that you're my people. We could grab a coffee together and you love you some steps. Okay. So, you know, we're going to bring them. So today, what we're talking about is identity formation. We are going to talk through how is identity from a psychological perspective, how is it actually developed? And therefore, how can we replicate that process and make it more functional? Okay. A lot of times women believe that they need to feel X, Y, and Z. They need to feel ready. They need to feel prepared. They need to feel like they have their ducks in a row, especially if you are a high performing woman. Oh my gosh, especially if you are playing in the corporate world, still also with my quote unquote entrepreneurs who are honestly sitting on top of companies, not just a small business. But you have had to fight tooth and nail to get where you are. You've had to make sure that your ducks are in a row. You can run on belief and I'm going to manifest it or whatever to an extent. To an extent, energy can carry you forward. But I think it is BS that women are out here just manifesting growth, especially up a corporate ladder. Especially if you're playing in a boys club, which so many of my clients are, right? They're hanging in a boys club, high pressure environment, especially in this AI age that we're in right now. And not only do they have their ducks in a row, they're going to fake it till they make it. And they may not even see it as having their ducks in a row, but the list is just constantly moving in their minds. They are consistently hypervigilant. That's what makes them good, right? So I want to talk about the fact that, you know, I do believe in just taking steps toward being healthy. And the belief is I'm a big like behavior comes before belief person. I also know that you are someone who really, really values having the belief. You want to know how to build the belief. Okay, I don't know. I don't have it right now. I don't believe that I am like inherently worthy and I belong in every room I walk into, whatever. But like, cool, how do I actually start taking steps to start building this cognitive belief? Because for you, your mind is your greatest asset. And everyone in the therapy world is going to tell you, listen to your body, listen to your body, listen to your body. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that, but I'm not disagreeing with that. I believe in playing to your strengths first. Yes. Do I believe that if you want to truly step into, especially like sustainable leadership, meaning you don't just want to climb the ladder. You don't just want to sit in this new role, but you want to last, and you don't want your kids to have to suffer for it. You don't want to have to suffer in order to stay in this role. Guys, the world is not built to have women in leadership. It's just not. We are operating in a very masculine orientation toward companies right now. It requires you to push. In order to do this, you have to have an identity that is secure and regulated in order to be able to do that sustainably, right? And I believe identity work is such a big part of this. And I just think it's nonsense to say, I want you to start listening to your body if you don't even realize like you have a body, right? And what I'm saying whenever I say this, right, is like, if you are someone who is tense and their shoulders live up here and they don't realize it because they've just always been there, and you're like, oh, they drop like 5 inches. 5, that's very dramatic. That is like, you should call someone. But like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, you're the person who like, you go and get a massage and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm in like actual pain. I'm in actual pain and I didn't realize it, right? This is what I'm saying whenever I'm like, if you didn't realize you had a body, that's what that looks like tangibly. Okay. So I believe in my approach to any of the healing work is like, we're going to play to your strengths first. And then, yes, I'm going to like challenge, and we need to dip lower into, you do have a body, all of the things, but we start with the mind. And if your identity has been wrapped up in being a rescuer, being the hero, being the strong one, being the go-to person, this episode is for you. In fact, I want you to like go get a journal, go get your notebook, one of the 5, one of the 6, because I know you got several. Okay. Pull the one out that is for your healing journey. Okay. That is what we are doing today. So let's jump into it, because we're going to start with like, okay, I want you to understand what identity, like what it functions as, why it's important, but then also how does it actually develop? And then how do you tweak it? Because if we don't know how we got here in the first place, it's just not very helpful, right? And then we're going to get into tangible takeaways, all of that jazz. Okay. So let's talk about how it develops. This is also part of the reason that in the retreats that I run, we're primarily focusing on childhood beliefs, experiences, blah, 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 whatever, right? Because all of the stuff that is most impactful for you today was developed as a child, simply because that's when our brain develops. That is where our nervous system is like pruned and wired and fired and all of the things. Okay. So identity at its core is about belonging. I'm going to say that again. Identity is about belonging. So in our home right now, so at the time of this recording, my daughter just turned 3. My son is like 1.5. I don't know. He turns 2 in April. And something like one of their affirmations, one of the things that we say, because we're trying to instill a sense of belonging no matter what, but also a unit-based identity, right? As we say, Team McGeehan stays together, right? So Team McGeehan stays together. And one of the affirmations that we say over both kiddos in the evening is, I belong in this family no matter what I do. Part of the reason for that is because as a child, you learn, who do I have to be in order to stay safe? And more specifically, because like, I want you to think about a child, right? I want you to think about like, especially young children, even babies. Yeah. I want you to think about this. Like, let's say you're in utero. You are like physically connected to mom. And honestly, it's like the Ritz-Carlton to be in utero. I mean, I don't have like tangible, conscious belief, like memory, whatever, but like, you do not have to think about anything. You're not paying rent. Your needs are met on demand 24/7. You are physically connected to mom. And then depending on how you are born, right? You're either shoved out of the birth canal, you are working in tandem with your mother to be brought into this world, or someone cuts a big hole and like pulls you out. Either way, I feel like it's an aggressive process. Okay, maybe I'm like too close to the process. Maybe I've not yet made it far enough behind. I think it is beautiful. I think women are beautiful. I think our bodies are phenomenal. And also, I think no matter how you do it, it takes work. It takes work to labor a human in this world. I think it takes labor to like leave this. They call it labor for a reason. Okay. So safety is equated with connection to mother and father, but initially it is mother. And I want you to think about this, right? Like, what is safety at its core? It's like, what do I need to do to like not die? Just really like cut and dry, right? Like, essentially that's what it is. And so as an infant, it's all about how do I stay fed? And your body is paying attention to that, right? Your nervous system is the bridge between your thoughts and your behavior. And it is wired to keep you safe. It's wired in this instance to keep you fed, to keep you connected. You have to do what you have to do in order to make sure that mom feeds you, right? So what do we see is that we see that babies cry. And thank goodness they are crying. We want them to cry, right? Because that is how we know they are hungry. That's why it's such a huge red flag anytime you hear someone come in and they say, oh, he was or she was a really quiet baby and she really didn't cry a whole lot. I'm like, oh God, like what happened in this attachment, in this connection process that caused baby to cut off from their innate way of communicating? Because truly, until these babies are walking and talking and speaking, and sometimes even then, crying is their primary mode of connection. Okay. So this all is forming this sense of who am I? Right? Who do I have to be in order to stay safe? As you get older, and primarily what we see in personality development, right, is we see that children notice that like they get smiles if they're cute. If they're cutesy and they're so kind and they're like giving hugs and they're doing something pro-social, right? They typically are going to be met with a positive response and a connecting response from their caregivers. Okay. So making sense. So like, especially I see this a lot with little girls. And I say that because if you're listening, it doesn't mean like you're necessarily a little girl, or that you were like an oldest daughter, but I work with tons of oldest daughters. I am an oldest daughter. Okay. They are not the only ones to have this experience. This is just large majority of what I see. Middle daughters and youngest daughters tend to be either scapegoated or they tend to be the lost child, right? And that has its own function, its own role, its own set of identity issues as well, to be very honest. But oldest daughters in particular learn that, you know, in order to get attention from mom, in order to get attention from dad, well, if I put on this really pretty dress and I put on a smile, well, I notice that I feel safe because I get more attention from mom and dad. And that's how I feel connected, right? This is where I feel loved because then mom is making eye contact with me. And when she makes eye contact with me, I feel like I'm the center of the universe, right? Keep in mind, this is all being developed through the lens of a 5-year-old, of a 3-year-old, of a 6, 7, 8-year-old. This is why so much of this work really comes back to this age frame, right? Because your sense of identity was developed with an immature brain. It's perfectly developed for that age, right? It's right where it needs to be, but you don't have adult reason. You don't have adult nuance, and you shouldn't be expected to. This is something I talk a ton with my clients about. Like, you are not expected to be able to understand, mom is exhausted because she's working and she's running a home. Dad is exhausted because he is working to provide for the family. They don't care. And like, y'all, they shouldn't have to care, right? It's not their job as a child to understand that adults have adult problems, right? It's just simply not in their biology. So the other thing we're considering here is, what does it take to avoid abandonment, conflict, fear? Because for a child, disconnection with their parent is death, right? Again, they don't have that prefrontal cortex. They don't have that ability to reason and to nuance, to be able to say, oh, as a child or as a baby, you know, if I didn't get my needs met, then I was going to die, but that's not the case anymore. No, their nervous system was created when they were little bitty babies and it was continuing to develop. So the same sorts of, oh, I'm going to die. Oh, I'm going to die. Oh, I'm going to die. Those same signals are coming online when they experience mom losing her mind, right? Like I think about for me in my house, I get overstimulated, and there's times more often than not, right, where I don't catch it, and I'm not able to be like, wow, I'm gonna go take a deep breath, I'm gonna put my earplugs in, I'm gonna go take a break. Like, no, I go 0 to 60 and I'm just like, bah! And like lose my mind for a second, and then I come back and I'm like, clearly mom needs to take a break. She needs to take a chill pill, right? But like a lot of times we don't make it to that space on time. And I watch my daughter's response in these moments and it's heartbreaking. And it would be so easy to be like, oh my gosh, stop being dramatic. Like you're having a hard time. Like imagine me, right? Which is what happens in very narcissistic homes is you're having a hard time. Imagine what kind of time I'm having, right? It's turned around. It's made about the parent versus no, what's happening, one, was frightening, was overwhelming. Mom, dad, whoever got really loud. But then also, if your child is coming to you and they're grabbing your leg and they're asking over and over and over for something, they are trying to establish connection, right? I always tell parents, I want you to chase the why. Get curious about why my child is behaving this way, and it's going to clear up so many issues, right? And so being able to recognize that was frightening, but it also was a rupture is huge, because then you can come back and you can let them know, like, I'm still here. I apologize. All of the things you can address that in a functional way, right? What I want you to take away, what I want you to make sure that you are writing down here is that childhood identity is built through response, not intention. I have yet to meet anyone, and I've worked with a lot of families, especially back in the day. I've worked with a lot of children. I've worked with a lot of adult children. I've never met anyone who intentionally, who on purpose set out to harm their child. This is also why it is so important to not focus on intention in the healing process. We have to focus on the impact. And for you, if you're truly wanting to understand your identity and how you got here to be the person who sees yourself as peacekeeper, helper, achiever, the responsible one, right? Emotional container and the fixer, or the invisible one, or the one who is blamed, right? The strong one. Like, you get here through response. What did mom and dad, how did they actually respond to your behavior? If every time you had a meltdown because you couldn't keep it together anymore and you really needed some connection, even though it was inconvenient for mom and dad, it doesn't matter if that's what you were told. But then when you were so sweet and you came out and you take care of your big brother, your little brother, or your little sister, whoever, then you're met with, oh my gosh, you're such a sweet girl. Oh, you're such a good helper. Oh my gosh. Then that is what is building the sense of identity. Because when we get that connection from mom and from dad, that's when we feel like we belong in the family. That is what's building this sense of safety. That's where your system goes and it relaxes. So I want you to keep in mind that your identity was shaped by your environment's expectations, not by your design. You didn't decide this. You didn't come into this world primed for this. None of us did, because children inherently, they want to play, they want to be spontaneous, they want to live their best tiny chaotic lives, right? That is how we actually come into this world. I hear this a ton from women that I work with and just women that I talk with, right? Like after a keynote, or after a training or whatever, is like, this is just like who I am. And I have an episode on that. You should go listen to it. It's called Perfection. Why? Like the myth of perfectionism is just who I am. I don't know what episode number it is, but I'll link it in the show notes. But that is a myth, and it's dangerous, because when you do that, you're priming your brain to then find like corroborating evidence to confirm that. through something called the reticular activating system, which is like almost like your brain's processor, right? This is the thing that allows us to find data to support our argument. So this is why it's so incredibly important to be very mindful of the things you're telling yourself, right? There's a time to feel it and heal it, okay? But there are other times, and it's the large majority of the time, that you need to be super mindful of the stories you're telling yourself and who you believe you are, because you will always be right. And not in a woo-woo way, although again, I love the woo-woo. And I do think there's an element of that. But also from like a neuroscientific perspective, what you are saying is literally what you are programming into your brain and your system, and you will always be right. Biology wins. Okay. So let's talk about the fact that like identity is developed through repetition. It is through nervous system pairing or coupling, right? So repeated behaviors paired with repeated emotional states. So identity really is not like, I don't want you to think about it as like who you are. And I want you to write this down. Identity is not who you are. It is who your nervous system learned it had to behave and who it had to be in order to keep you safe. One more time. Identity is not who you are. It's who your nervous system learned it had to be. And all of that is based in connection. All of that is based in how do I get the smiles? How do I get the hugs? And if you're someone who didn't have a plethora of that, right? If you are someone who only received that when you got the A on the test, when you were being so kind and taking care of little brother, little sister, if you are someone who primarily received that when you were quiet, and you were seen and not heard, right? Shout out to our generation, little sandwich generation. Then your brain has learned to associate achievement with safety. It has learned that I have to do something in order to be connected, versus I'm worthy of connection, or that's just like a baseline state. Right? We do not come into this world understanding that because it's initially severed through the birthing process. You also have the opportunity to learn that emotions are dangerous. They are a literal threat, because when I have big feelings, my caregiver goes away. The person who's kept me safe, right? There is no bigger threat to a nervous system. This is also where you can learn that chaos is baseline. Chaos is healthy, right? And that having a need is unsafe. So we need to understand that this has not happened through one experience, not two, not three. This is years of repeated roles as a child, repeated emotional cues, and repeated relational patterns over and over and over and over again. Therefore, when you come in and you're like, hey, I did this, and it sucked when I asserted for what I want and what I needed. And yeah, it was not as great as I thought it was going to be. And I don't feel any better. Like, cool. Of course you don't, because you just did the thing that your nervous system is telling you is not going to be helpful, is not going to feel good. And so it doesn't matter if it was healthy. It's going to take reps to uncouple, because what we want to do is it's called uncoupling. We want to separate these two things, right? If connection is connected to being earned, if emotions are connected to being dangerous or cut off, then we want to give you as many opportunities as possible to experience the opposite, to experience that connection. You can still experience this even when you're having a meltdown, even when you're literally not doing anything, right? This is part of why the therapeutic process is so powerful and important, right? Is because you can have an emotion and someone can hopefully stay attuned and connected to you through that emotion. And then you've experienced a different pattern. You've disrupted that pattern. And this is how we start to build a new identity, right? So if the tension is we start to outgrow this thing that has protected us, right? Being competent, being fierce, being fast moving, whatever. And people really start to get focused on behaviors when you're in this learning process. And you start to say, okay, I'm doing that. And what I find typically, especially with my class, something I'm seeing here at the time of this record, so 2025, is there's a lot of women who have taken the healthier, more like receiving based, right? More feminine based behaviors, and they're doing them, but their sense of identity hasn't caught up. So what I'm wanting to offer everyone who's listening to this is like, if you do this identity work alongside behavioral change and you go down your little list and you're like, okay, I really want to change the fact that I'm super hyper vigilant, the fact that I'm super control, like whatever it is, right? Whatever your list looks like, I don't want to rescue everyone around me. You are going to 10x the work you're putting into it, like the ROI that you get out of it, if alongside you are working through this new sense of identity. Okay. Because what happens is you start to feel like there's something wrong with you. You start to really question yourself. You start to say, oh gosh, I'm noticing even more emotions showing up and I just don't understand what's happening. And hey, my husband is even on board. My partner is even on board. And yet I'm still feeling this way. Like, I think maybe I'm doing something wrong. And they start to question themselves, right? Because now they have stability. They have like the money is there, right? Typically that's the thing that, especially with my clientele, they have associated with success. So the stability is there, the income is there, the relationships, the roles they've always wanted, they start to be handed to you because what the energy that we put out is the energy that we attract, right? And so there's this disconnect, this hiccup, because all of a sudden they are no longer receiving the message that connection has to be earned. They're not receiving that chaos is normal and healthy. And so they're in this like limbo of like, ooh, like how do I actually interpret this? Right. So honestly, I'm like, I didn't plan this, but I'm like, this is a really good exercise and we should just do it. Like, I want you to go down and I want you to take out your journal, hit pause, and don't do this obviously if you're in the car. Oh my God. But like, I want you to pull out your journal and I want you to write down for you currently, what is your identity? What are your connectors to safety? What are your connectors to connection, right? Is it competence? Is it hustling hard? Is it pushing? Is it getting everything done? Maybe at work and at home? Is it being the strong one? And I want you to literally put like a dash and what it is connected to, right? So maybe go through 5 things, and maybe it is that chaos is associated with safety or baseline, or it helps me push harder. Maybe it is that achievement is based in feeling good and feeling connected, understanding, right? And then, because only once we have it on paper can we truly look at this and be like, okay, so if you're in the middle of this process, then what new behavioral stimuli is coming out that's leading to an association we haven't yet defined, right? So perhaps it is the stability, the healthy enough relationship. Perhaps it is having a role, but also perhaps it's just having like day-to-day stability. I have a routine. It makes a lot of sense. I don't hold to it every single day, but I hold to it enough, right? And what do you want to pair that with? Because oftentimes this is where we take just like a few steps backward. Now that's going to happen no matter what. We're not going for like perfection here, right? It's just not a thing, but you can expedite this process by just really honing down. What is it that I want to actually build my identity from? And this is the concept of like updating your software. I talk about this a lot, especially in my retreat, because this retreat has gone through so many rebranding processes, but like the core of the work itself really hasn't. And I talk a lot about like your mind, your psyche, your sense of identity, and your nervous system is just a computer. And we are going to debug that computer and we are going to reprogram it in a weekend to orient you to something that is going to be more effective. and we're going to do it very, very quickly over a short amount of time. And this is part of why this works so well. And I was literally just on a call with a woman who did the retreat back in like May, and she was like, May, yeah. And she was just like, I don't know, like things have just been good, right? That was almost like 6 months ago. That was over 6 months. No, that was over 6 months ago. And she's like, it's just like, life is just easier. We're just like chilling. Yeah, we're working on things kind of, sort of, but like, I just feel lighter. I just feel better. I feel like I literally have the world at my fingertips. It's because like your mind is actually very simple to work with whenever you know what you're doing, whenever you are in the right fit. Right? Because this is also where I get very controlling. I know who's going to benefit from this work. I know when you're ready. And that's why the qualification process to get into these retreats is a 2-step, like 2-hour process. That is, the results are very, very important to me, and sustained results, right? But it all really comes down to this idea that like, not that this stuff is easy. I don't want to say that and be really like invalidating for someone, but like it is. It's a pattern. It's a formula. That's what I will say. It is a formula. It is a pattern. And once you learn how to hack it, you go in and you just, from there, it's pretty easy. Okay. So I want you to also have, like, if you're listening and you're like, okay, cool, I'm here, but I don't actually know if I've outgrown my sense of identity. I don't actually even know if this is like for me. I want to give you 3 signs that you are living from an old identity or something you have outgrown. Okay. And then I want you to jot these down. I want you to have them somewhere that's accessible, because in therapy, in psychology, we start with a treatment plan. We start with like, what is the actual problem? And this is what is informed or informing intervention. We have to understand what is going on. This is half the issue. I have a framework that I call, oh gosh, I always get it wrong. I should come up with something I can remember, but yours, mine, and ours in terms of relational navigation. And you have to know if the issue you're having is yours, in that it's based on your history. Is it theirs? Is it the person sitting across from you and you're just not holding an internal boundary to be able to hold it at a distance, right? Or is it ours? And this is where a lot of people tend to orient. We tend to think that if I'm having a feeling or a reaction, I have to talk about it with my partner. Half the time, like more than half the time, that's actually not true. But ours is like, this is a genuine relational issue. We need to talk through this in terms of navigating our relationship. So 3 signs that you are moving and living from an outgrown sense of identity. Okay. 1 is that you keep recreating familiar stress even when life is good. I'm going to say this one again because this one is so hard and we don't talk about it enough, or we talk about it in a cutesy Instagram way. Okay. If you keep recreating familiar stress patterns, even when life is good, your sense of identity has not caught up, and it needs to. This is where self-sabotage, all that jazz starts to come in. Okay. This is actually what is going on. I almost even want to like pull it out of your brain that you're self-sabotaging, because you're not. You're just recreating old familiar patterns, and you can bypass that if you can get a new sense of identity to catch up. Okay. So sign number 2 is you're successful on paper, but you feel really disconnected internally. So what this looks like is, I can see the trends in my financial forecast. I see we're trending up. I see that I've received this promotion, and performance reviews have been going really well. My team is really responsive. I am moving forward at a pace that is expected or even ahead of what is expected. And yet I walk into a room and I tense. I sit down at the table and I tense. I'm never off. I'm always thinking about work, right? I feel like a fraud. I feel as though I haven't made it yet, right? A lot of people talk about this moment when you know that you have made it. And for me personally, I do not think there's anything more dangerous to your growth than constantly searching for the moment when you have made it. I simply believe that it doesn't exist, and or for the women who want to, like, they want to run, they want to sprint. Like those are my ladies. Okay. Those are my friends. I am her. Well, that depends. I am her-ish. I am her intentionally. We have a version of her, right, that like comes online. But like the people I love working with, they want to freaking move. They don't have time. They are sitting at the top of their game and the stakes are really high, right? You have to be able to find contentment. You have to be able to find peace exactly where you are. It is a non-negotiable. And this is not about feeling good. This is not about you have to do this because you've earned it, blah, 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 blah. No, this is for nervous system capacity. Your nervous system's ability to exhale and relax, not all the time, not 24/7, but it has to be able to move, right? I want you to think of the little, I always say I'm going to have it in here, then I never do, but they're called like the something hemisphere. I don't even know. But it's like this little ball thing and it expands and it contracts. And I use it a lot for mindfulness with my kids. That is what your nervous system is meant to do. It's meant to ride the waves of stress and even of joy, especially if you're high performing and you're listening to this podcast, right? Because ultimately joy and peace is going to feel like a huge stressor because that is not one of your connection points. It's not one of your associations that you have with safety, right? The goal is not to feel good all of the, like the point of being able to say, oh, I am safe exactly where I am. And safe being relative. I'm not saying, oh, you can go live on a beach forever. You don't have to work anymore. No, but trusting the fact that like, if you've made it to a certain revenue marker, right? If you've made it to $250,000 or you've made it to 6 figures, then you know the formula for making money. If you have made it to a certain point in the corporate ladder, then you know how to climb the corporate ladder. You know how to play the game. Trusting that. That is where the system can find some safety, even if it's in a moment of push, even if it's a moment of we're still working toward a goal. That's what builds capacity. That is what allows your system to relax and allows you to actually continue pushing harder, faster, all of the things. This is by far one of the things that my clients have pushed back on me the hardest and that I think is so challenging. And the thing is that if you don't learn how to do it now, then you are going to build your next version of self, your next version of identity seeped in this like stressy, regressy little place of like tension, right? And I will tell you, it's a lot easier to do this work now than it is to hang on for a moment. And maybe you're pushing to 7 figures, multiple 7 figures. Maybe you're knocking on 8 figures. And now you want to take the moment to like fall apart and do like all of this, like that's a lot harder. It's so much easier to do it now. And the process is the same. It is wash, rinse, and repeat, right? This is why I want you to have these signs of like, oh, there's some work here for me to do. There's some work here for me to do. Like, yep, okay, we've made it to this next level. And it's time for me to like dive back into the process. And the thing is like once you've moved through the process, once you've named the process, once you understand the systems that go into transformation, you can do them whenever you need to, whenever you want to. And it just gets easier and easier because you're freeing up more space. You're freeing up more flow within your nervous system, within your own flow and connection. And so it goes from being this thing that you white knuckle and you're like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? To, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing, right? Like for me, this looks like picking up the phone and being like, all right, here's what's happening. Here are my red flags. I know something's going on. Help me push, right? To my friends who are sort of my go-to people within this. And they will push back and be like, oh, I'm sorry. Are you someone who listens to fear? Oh, I'm sorry. Are you someone who actually has to continue creating more mess whenever the data is telling you X, Y, and Z? Or like, what do you need to help breathe through this, right? Whatever it is. But someone who can hold up that mirror and be like, hey, here's what's happening. Here's what's going on. Is that who you want to be? And I can be like, oh yeah, haha. And like, I move forward because I've done this work so many times. It feels fairly fluid, right? And sometimes it doesn't mean every time it's like, hey, bestie, I just need a 5-minute conversation. Like, no, sometimes it's hard, but it gets a lot easier. All of this stuff is muscle. And once you have it, if you keep it up, if you keep those reps up, if you tend to it, if you know how to fuel the muscle, truly, you can pick it back up whenever you need to, right? Now, third sign that you are knocking on this outgrown identity is that you are struggling to let yourself rest, receive, and or just like be supported specifically without guilt. There's something going on. I want this to be your red flags, right? To give you heads up of like, oh, hey, we've knocked up on this next level. Because here's the thing that I know about you is that you have probably been to therapy and they've probably said, where do you feel that in your body? And you've been like, what body are you talking about? And it really is so much easier to play to your strengths initially and to have an image and idea of where you're going before you get there. We love us the good map over here. Okay. I know that you love you a good map. This is how we build it. These are your signs. Okay. So you keep recreating familiar stress. You are successful on paper, but internally you're feeling disconnected and you cannot let yourself rest, receive, or be supported. These are signals that, hey, it's time for a new map. It's time for a new way of like where we're heading. Okay. So, in terms of what I want you to be thinking about, if you're like, okay, yes, I need a new identity. Here are your steps. Okay. Here are your tangible. This is like, if you didn't have your journal before, you want it now. Here's what I actually want you thinking and moving through, right? Step one is we're going to go find your origin story. Let's identify your origin identity. What were those primary associations that were paired with connection and safety for you as a child, meaning under the age of 18, but primarily we're really looking at around like 5 years old. This is where, there's just so much personality that is being developed. There's so many associations. Your brain is really coming online and you're also starting to get a little bit feral, a little bit froggy, a little bit like, ooh, right? Where parents are all of a sudden, you're not like a cute toddler anymore. You're not the sweet little baby that is like a dream for a narcissist, because you're not an extension of self. Now you're like your own person. Right? 5-year-olds, they're going to tell you how it is. This is where we really start to see those primary associations that are being made. So who did I have to be in my childhood home? What feelings were unsafe? And if you're listening to this and you're like, what's a feeling? I want you to go find a feeling wheel. I want you to sit with it. Love her, know her, hang her up on your refrigerator. Okay. What feelings were not allowed in your home, or we're just going to lead to mom and dad freaking out? What roles did I play? Okay. Was I a hero? Was I the invisible child? Was I scapegoat? Was I the clown, the mascot? What role did I play? Was I the fixer, the counselor, right? And then what love did I learn I must earn? So this is connection, smiles, hugs, attention in general, right? Like, what is it that I was seeking? This is going to name your old identity architecture, your old map that we're working from. Okay. From here, we're going to look at building the aligned identity blueprint. We have to know where we have been in order to know where we are going. So here, I want you asking, who do I want to be when I'm not in survival? Do I want to be someone who can receive rest? Do I want to be someone who is playful? Do I want to be someone who is always in fix-it mode, right? These are very important questions to ask yourself, right? What does the regulated version of me actually desire? Do you even know? And if you don't, if you're listening and you're like, you're stressing me out, woman, like, I don't know what I want, then I want you to lean into some mindfulness. I want you to notice, for me, my children are like always barefoot. I am always barefoot. Like, we really, really enjoy that. I have friends who are like, that's like the worst sensation ever. Absolutely not. Do not tell me to get my feet on grass. This is a mindfulness practice and understanding, right? Of like what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. If this is a muscle that's underdeveloped, it's a skill that's underdeveloped for you, the way that you go through and you develop that further is you simply start to notice the things you enjoy and the things that you don't enjoy. Okay. You will notice typically there's a lot of color in my life. Okay. I enjoy vibrant colors. I enjoy like that is the magenta and the purple and the teal on my walls. Like I enjoy bold colors. If you look at previous pictures of me, especially before I started this work myself, I'm in lots of black. I'm in lots of gray. I still wear lots of gray hoodies, but that was essentially my wardrobe palette versus now when you look in my closet, there's definitely a few like darker colors, but like for the most part, I got lots of hue in it, right? So fashion is a really fun way to play with this. Noticing what kind of foods you enjoy. I could do a whole episode on this, honestly. So if y'all are interested in that, y'all just let me know. But again, what does the regulated version of me do not listen? We want to take, stressy, regressy version of you. We want to take her account, like, because this is the 5-year-old. This is the teenager inside of you who has an opinion, knows what she wants, doesn't know what she wants, whatever it is. We want to take her opinion into account, but we don't want her to be driving the bus. So a lot of times when clients are dysregulated, they'll be like, well, I want, right? And they're listening to those littles. What I want you to do is take what they want and put it in sort of like a little box. We want to take it into account. But what I am asking is, what does functional adult, what does team captain you actually want and desire? She probably wants to be able to come home, hang her bag up, and just have a moment for herself. She probably wants a moment where she can like truly let her hair down, where husband or house manager decides to make dinner. She wants a partner who is assertive and voices what they want and steps into a place of leadership. Like, what does team captain you desire? And then what feels expansive instead of pressured? Okay. Meaning, what are things that really light you up? For me, I am someone who I just tremendously value honesty and like direct communication, right? I have experienced a lot of, and both parties, everyone is human in this, right? But I've had the experience of people just ghosting me, and that was really painful, right? In those friendships and those whatever type of or I've had people who looked me in the face and not been honest, right? This is also something I experienced a ton as a child, so it's a pain point for me. So there is nothing more exciting to me in terms of my friendships in particular than when someone says, hey, when you said this, it really bothered me. Or I'm not available. I'm not available to come and help and support. And so I really need you to find someone else. Like that kind of honesty. I make up that it takes a lot of courage. It certainly takes courage for me to have conversations like that. And it just feels like I can breathe in like the best way. It feels so loving. It feels so respectful, so kind, right? So for me, like, honesty and integrity is a North Star for me, and it just feels expansive. This also means I apply it to myself. This happens a ton within my work, and sometimes it makes for very uncomfortable conversations in my business, in my work, but I lead with integrity. My clients know I'm not showing up for work. I'm not showing up for a container. I'm not going to take your money if I am not confident that I'm in a place to be able to lead you through this process and really listen to what your process actually is and what it needs to be, right? For me, it's a non-negotiable. And so when you do that, right, integrity is a core part of my identity. It's how I lead. This is what I want you thinking about. What is that for you, right? And then what I want you to do is I want you to use nervous system micro shifts to begin building, but like fostering this new identity, okay? Because identity change does not happen just because you want it to. When you're like, poof, I'm a regulated leader, or poof, all of a sudden I am a partner you can come home and receive. Like, no, you have to be intentional about it. And this is the part that like my audience is fantastic at, is it changes when your body experiences safety in a new behavior. Now, this is where I want you to be intentional. And for me in my own process, because I am an external processor, obviously I love me a little good yap session. I really benefit from coming in and being very direct about some of the things that are going on in my life and finding safe containers to practice in, finding safe people to practice these things with. So some examples might be, saying no without over explaining, being able to receive help without feeling guilt. And sometimes that sounds like for me right now, I have just like this really phenomenal group of I have a very strong village in terms of parenting. And so there have been moments where, especially I just came out of a very stressful, not just, but last year was really tough. Our transition to 2 was a beating. It has nothing to do with the kids and everything to do with the learning, just adult growing pains, right? My village showed the heck up. They freaking showed up in a way that can get me so emotional. And I wish that experience on every young mother. It was just such a gift. Being able to say, receiving is really hard for me. Accepting help is really hard for me. And I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to trust that if you didn't really mean it, or that if this is going to negatively impact our relationship, that I value that first. And I want you to care for that first, right? So giving it a voice, but then practicing, and being intentional, especially if you're walking through this right now, saying, okay, this is something I'm going to practice in my marriage. This is something I'm going to practice in my friendships. This is something I'll practice with my kids, right? And then intentionally creating these moments and noticing when it happens, okay? Because it is the repetition that creates the actual wiring. It's the repetition that takes time. Identity equals evidence plus repetition. I'll say that one more time. I want you to write it down. Identity equals evidence or data plus repetition. This is where you, team captain, are actually showing your nervous system. Our system collectively, we are a woman who rests. We are a woman who asks for support. We are a woman who leads without hypervigilance and pressure, right? So we are looking for micro repetitions. This fosters this new identity. And this is what really opens up new possibilities. And you get to wash, rinse, and repeat this process as many times as you need to, right? But I want to leave you with, identity is not discovered. It is not this, wow, look at who I am now. It is built brick by brick. And the more intentional you can be about pulling out that manual and actually laying the brick, actually being able to see where you are headed, is going to expedite the process. It is going to allow you to move forward with confidence and to question yourself a lot less, right? You get to become the woman that your past never allowed you to be. You are in charge of your whole life. I tell that to my clients all the time. You are 100% in charge. Comes with consequences, no matter what. Staying where you are has consequences. Going somewhere new has consequences. But you are absolutely in charge of the process. And honestly, I think it's one of the most liberating experiences that you can have in this life, right? Not to get super existential, but it is deciding, realizing this version of me, it doesn't fit anymore. And I do want something different. That's just peeling back the onion layer by layer. It's going to happen a million times. And, what a beautiful adventure to continually become new and more deeper versions of yourself. Okay, that is what I had for you today. I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, slide into my DMs, come let me know on Instagram, let me know what you thought, and I will see you in the next one. Alrighty, friend, that is all for today's episode of the Aligned Powerhouse podcast. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And do me a favor, if this episode resonated, I want you to share it with another powerhouse woman in your life who is ready to lead and love from a place of self-trust. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a quick rating or review. It really does help more women find this work. New episodes drop every week. Until then, lead with self-trust and let yourself be seen.